Welcome to Focus on Why, the podcast where reflection sparks action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and together we'll explore compelling stories, profound insights, and transformative experiences from inspiring guests worldwide. Feeling lost or unfulfilled? Searching for clarity, purpose, or meaning in your work and life? This podcast invites you on a journey of self-discovery to align your work with your values, shape your future with intention, and create a purposeful way of life. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we dive in, let me share how I can transform your journey as a purpose coach. I specialize in helping you get crystal clear on your why, aligning your passion with your purpose, and crafting a plan to create the life you truly desire. Book a free 30-minute coaching call today. The link is in the show notes. Let's start building your purposeful future together. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Lucy McCarra. Welcome.
Thank you, Amy. It's so nice to be here.
It really is. And I'm just going to dive straight in and ask you, what is it you're focusing on right now?
Well, right now I am focusing on, on purpose because as a sort of almost a sideline, I mentor women through a mastermind called Mission Magic or the Mission Mastermind. So mission, purpose, it's kind of interchangeable. And I'm about to give a 1 hour free online mastermind. So I am at the moment just focusing on that. And because I think it's terribly important for people to understand that they need a purpose. I mean, there are really strong scientific reasons. There is the science of purpose going on out there. And having a purpose is something that is good for you physically, mentally, emotionally, and actually leads to you living a longer and happier life. So, my word for purpose, I suppose, is mission. And I'm particularly keen for women to understand their missions. And so I run year-long masterminds of groups of 10 to 12 women. And I find that this is a really great way for them to develop their current mission or purpose, because I think they change. I think your mission and your purpose change over time. I think possibly you have one overarching mission or purpose in life, and then as you go along, your specific kind of more time limited purposes for particular either projects or services that you offer at some particular time, or a business that you run has a specific purpose, and that will often have a time span. And then when you get to the end of that time span, it can be quite hard to know what's happening. You might just feel a bit uncomfortable or dissatisfied, but actually what's happening is that you're looking for your next mission. In my view, that is how things work. And I particularly feel that women tend to live their lives in cycles. I mean, we know we have cycles, but that are the kind of metaphors for our lives is much more cyclical, while men, I feel, have much more straight line metaphors like career ladder or the path or, a goal to achieve, while women kind of cycle through different things. And it's partly to do with our roles, outside business, family roles, personal roles. But also I feel that we, especially perhaps in the second half of life, we take a purpose or a mission and we cycle it through, and then it's sort of time to move on to the next thing. So those are my thoughts. Those are my those are my purposes at the moment.
Well, very aligned with the work I do. It's fabulous. And it's so great to be able to champion other people who are working with people on focusing on their purpose. You mentioned, though, that this was a sideline.
Well, it's sort of, I mean, I suppose I think of my kind of main job, my full-time job really, as running particularly Book Magic AI, which is the app for writing and planning and writing and promoting the perfect business book. And by business book, I mean the book that builds your business. That has grown out of my work with Rethink Press, which I also still am part of as director and founder of, and also my mentoring work through the Key Person of Influence program, which I have been doing for the last, I think it's 12 years. So I have literally taken thousands of entrepreneurs through the process of planning and writing their book. And that often incorporates their purpose as well. I feel the book that you're writing at any one time is has to be aligned with the purpose of your business and your personal purpose. So I suppose what I mean is, I mean, the reason this, or the sideline, I don't really like to say that women are my sideline, but working in women only groups came about because I founded the Business Book Awards in 2017. And the first awards took place in 2018. And what happened very accidentally, and to my mind, somewhat unfortunately, was that although I felt I'd built a very equal 50-50 gender split judging panel, the 11 winners of the first awards were all white men. And there was no kind of going back on that. Those were who the different, the categories, the book categories, and the overall winner of the Business Book Awards that year. And those were who the judges have chosen. And I couldn't go back to them and say, look, I'm sorry, we must have made a mistake somewhere. There must be some books by women here that you'd like to choose. So it started me off on a path to trying to understand why, as it turned out, we'd only had half as many women entering books in those first awards. Then finding out why fewer women were writing and publishing their business books. And then I wrote a book called A Book of One's Own, which explained that, talked about that, but also sort of promoted writing a business book for women, that women business owners, women entrepreneurs should write their books. Because I found that they lacked confidence, they were scared of criticism. They also, interestingly, thought that writing their book was a selfish activity, which I've never heard a man say, because they felt that it took them away. It was something they were doing on their own. It felt as if they were doing it for themselves. And it took them away from potentially looking after other people, whether that was their families, their partners, their colleagues, their clients, could have been anyone. But a lot of women came up. I didn't even ask them about that. They just said, this is how it felt. So I felt I needed to persuade them and encourage them to look at it in a very different way, that actually there was a big purpose in writing their book, which was beyond any kind of selfishness. It was about sharing their knowledge and expertise with a wider audience, and that actually they were being selfish in keeping it to themselves. And they really needed to, share it, get it out there, write it down, make sense of it. So I started also doing women-only book writing programs, so that women felt they were in a safe space to do that and were able to share those concerns. And those were great, and I loved doing them. And I really felt that it was offering women something that they hadn't found before. And then it kind of, I mean, over the next couple of years, we got to the point with the Business Book Awards where we were getting equal entries of male and female authors, which was wonderful, and equal shortlisted numbers, and everything sort of seemed to have fallen into place with that. But I didn't want to stop working with women because I loved these women-only groups, and so I offered a masterclass, and I talked about it in the first instance as leadership. But after the first couple of years, I realized that it wasn't necessarily about leadership. What everybody in the group, in each group, had focused on and had developed over the year was actually their mission. So I changed the name of the masterclass to the mastermind to the Mission Mastermind, and that that's stuck for the moment. That's my current mission. So I say, my mission is your mission. So that's and that's why it's sort of a sideline, because obviously I do want to offer what I do, particularly the book writing, for everybody. It's not just for women, and that's why Book Magic is very much my happy place as well, because it is. I feel it's having turned my mentoring process, my book mentoring process, into an app and given it a lot of AI support. I do want to say very clearly that it's not about getting AI to write your book for you. That is not any good to anybody, an author, publisher, or readers. But it does mean that it's cheaper than individual mentoring or coaching, and it's open to everybody. I hope anybody who wants to write a business book. So yes, so that's sort of my mission too, my purpose.
I love it. And I became very aware of the literary bias that you were speaking about, particularly in nonfiction. Back in 2019, I remember writing a blog about it, and it was a bit of a call to arms because I recognized I'm a very avid reader, but only 21% of the books I'd been reading in a wide breadth of areas for business development and personal development had been penned by women. And so I made sure, well, hold on, is this a case for other people in my networks? And it would appear it was actually, I was in a good place. Other people had lower numbers. 8% was one of them, of a friend who was also someone who was widely read, but he was quite disturbed that that was the case. He reached out to a few other people and realized, yes, this is the case. So it was a call to arms in terms of helping people be more aware of this, but also, as you say, how can we encourage future generations or existing generation right now to be inspired if they're not seeing role models and trailblazers? So it was very much a case of what's possible, then write it. And then I realized, well, hold on a minute, you also need to write something. And that's how I created my book. So absolutely, let's tip the literary bias here, and bring more awareness to some incredible people who are doing incredible work, particularly women who are not writing about it. And as you say, it actually will have a bigger impact if they do put it down on paper for many, many people who they wouldn't have the opportunity to meet in person. So yeah, fabulous, fabulous work. And I love My Mission is Your Mission. You said that you believe that there's one overarching purpose in life, and then it's evolved and changed and adapted into different specific time bound elements. What is that one overarching mission for you, Lucy?
Well, mine seems to be, and I did this piece of work with a friend of mine called Melanie Gow, who used to be called the Legend Maker. And she had this process where you look back over your life and you pick some key moments and influences, if you like. And then I couldn't see it myself. But she was able to say to me, I can see what you've been doing from the very start of your working life, where I went to Australia with my husband, my then husband, when I was in my I was 21 at the time. I married very young and we went off to Australia. And he had a job, an academic job, but we started a theatre magazine because we did not hear the voice of Australian theatre. And subsequently, I've also been a work-life balance expert, and as you know, a publisher and a book mentor coach. And she said, what your mission is, Lucy, is that you are trying to get the voices of people who are not heard out into the world, and that is what that is your overarching mission. And that's sort of like, that was quite, I felt quite moved that she'd pointed that out to me, because I'd thought I just had a rather messy CV of doing lots of odd things without a plan, things that tended to come my way, and I'd go, oh yes, that sounds interesting. No, I can't do it, but I'm not telling you that. I'll just say yes, I can do it and learn how to do it. But I do think that, and also just for me, my purpose is writing. It is the written word, putting things into the written word. It's the way my brain works. I can't process things unless I see them written down. I don't actually know what I'm thinking until I've written it and seen it either on a page or a screen, and being able to formulate it. So I don't know if that counts as purpose or whether that is simply the way I am. But I do like to be able to give people who are not getting their voices heard for whatever reason, a platform, I suppose, and getting them clear about what they should be saying, and their experience, their expertise, and their talents, and providing some kind of platform or support for showcasing that. And I do actually think I do have a huge love of books, because I think it is an iconic format. I mean, people are always predicting the end of books, and oh, it started with Kindles and ebooks, and no, we'd never need to buy any more actual books, and then audio books, and whatever else, videos, and but no, books go on selling, and I do think there's something incredibly special about the format of a book, even when we don't read it in its physical printed form, we somehow carry that format inside our heads. It's sort of the length of a piece of work. I mean, typically a novel is 80 to 90,000 words, and we kind of know that. When we start reading fiction, we it's sort of, that's our expectation. Non-fiction books are usually shorter, and the business books that we publish at Rethink Press tend to be 30 to 40,000 words, because we actually want people to read all of them and not, kind of give up halfway. But there's that sort of expectation that even when you don't have the physical printed book in your hand, it's kind of, I think it's part of your neurology, in a way, that we've absorbed the book-shaped format into our thinking, at least in the, I don't know what you'd call it, the Western world, the Western literary world, maybe. And the way you divide it up into chapters, and chapters perhaps into topics. In fiction, there's the 3-act structure. It's all part of what has turned up in books, essentially, and what books have made it. So I feel there's a kind of book. I don't know how that quite fits in with purpose, but I want to say that a book creates a purposive way of creating a piece of work.
And it's interesting, isn't it? You said that you couldn't see it, and it took someone else to share the reflection of your threads of life and weave them together in a way that made sense from an external perspective. Had there been a time, Lucy, in your own life where you didn't have a voice?
Yes, I think, I think probably well, yes. I mean, I think I felt somewhat voiceless, perhaps, in probably up to being about 40, really. Um, I think that was partly because I always worked with my first husband, and he was the extrovert and the leader, if you like, and the kind of the one who went out there and literally had the voice. Because I was very, I'm still an introvert. I don't naturally go out and, kind of talk to people in a loud kind of way. I love one-to-one conversations like this. But I used to be, I suppose, really very shy. I would, I would write. I've always done the writing thing. When we had when we ran the magazine, I used to edit it, and and write a lot of it. And then we had a video and TV production company, and I was the director of development. So I would create concepts and write them up and, sort of sell them into TV companies and things like that. But I sort of felt that I was like, I don't know, sort of second in line, or not the person who would go out there and talk about things, perhaps in a public way, at least. And so perhaps I did feel somewhat voiceless up to that point. Although I don't think it's really interesting that you point that out and make me think about it, because it hasn't occurred to me that that was the case before.
Often when I'm speaking to people about the purpose of their work, there is an experience of where there was a void or a lack of in their own life. And that's why they champion it so, because they feel so connected with its importance of why it is so relevant, and why they want to do the work, and trying to get those voices of those who have not been heard into the world, and that it was a case of you were doing that even though you weren't aware of it. You were doing that through the theatre magazine and the other TV and video production work. What is, I find, with a book is that one-to-one relationship that you have. You know that you're writing something that is going to be received by somebody else, even though you don't know who they are. It's a message in a bottle kind of thing through time, that at some point in the future somebody's going to pick it up and hear what you've had to say. And you said you love these one-to-one conversations, and the book is very similar in that format.
Absolutely. I mean, I often say to the writers that I'm mentoring, just remember, because people often think, oh, when I'm writing a book, I'm talking to loads of people out there. I'm talking to the world. I'm trying to write a bestseller. And my advice to them is, no, don't do that. Just talk to, particularly when you're writing a book to build your business, you are just talking to one person. And in fact, in that context, that person is your ideal prospect. So just talk to them. Other people are going to get value from your book, but you're actually writing this book to bring people back to you, to know, like, and trust you, to understand your process and what you do, and ultimately, ideally, to come and work with you. So yes, I think it's very important to remember that, as you say, every single time somebody reads a book, unless perhaps they're in school and the teacher's reading to them or something, that this is a thing we do on our own. We don't listen to books in a collective way. We don't sit round. Perhaps we did once, but it's not like even sitting around the television or in the cinema where it becomes a collective experience. It's not. It's always one to one. And when so many books are, I mean, I listen to a lot of audio books now. And then you have got that person's voice in your ears, and it is absolutely a one-to-one experience of them talking to you. So yes, it's that is also what a book does.
And you mentioned there, and it's quite a distinction about building your business with a book and a business book
Yeah.
itself. And explain to the listener what you mean by the two different types of books. Of course, one might fit both.
Absolutely. So, I mean, I think it's that for example, there are every book has to go onto a bookshelf somewhere or an Amazon categories. And there is a category, in the broadest sense, called business. And, it's about how to run a business. It might be marketing, it might be finance, it might be building your business, but generally it's about business, and that's a business book. But a book that builds your business could be about anything. You may be a wellness coach, you might be a digital marketer, you might have any kind of business. And so a book that builds your business is about your business and what you do. And that may or may not fit into the overall kind of category of business book. So, for example, with the Business Book Awards over the first sort of 4 or 5 years, we developed a whole load of categories so that we could include books that weren't necessarily typically going to be called business books. So, I mean, we do have all those categories like leadership and marketing and things you'd expect, but we also have things like work and life, we have self-development, we have business journey. So, I mean, you could even, technically submit a business novel. I mean, there is business fiction out there, which I find fascinating. Um, so we've tried to make it as broad as possible to fit not just the books that are specifically about running a business or building a business, but about everybody's business, whatever that is. So
And
that's
yeah, I mean, it was fascinating being at the Business Book Awards this year. My book was a finalist in the work and life category. And when I spoke to my publisher, they initially had wanted me in a different category, but I argued a case of it being more suited for this particular one, which ended up being, a good choice, having been shortlisted.
absolutely.
What I'm finding is this blend of work and life. Everybody tries to seek a balance, but I don't necessarily believe that there's one to be struck. However, purpose allows you to have that blend, and where you're so on mission, this is what I see in fulfillment being reached and why so many people are not feeling fulfilled, because they are not understanding how they can wrap their purpose into their daily life, both at work and at home. So what about you, Lucy? Because you seem to have this through piece of purpose in everything you're doing.
Yes, well, I have never had a job. I've never had a proper job, so I've always um, felt the need to wrap my working purpose, if you like, around my home and family purpose. And I think that, particularly with women, although of course, lots of men, wonderful parents and all the rest of it. I think that is still more something that women feel the need to do. I mean, we still tend to take the part-time jobs or, go into a part-time or flexible working role or give up work for a bit when our children are small, more than, I mean, of course, sometimes some men do, and that's wonderful. And many couples share it, and that's fantastic too. But it still falls more to women than to men still. So I think it's really important when you're looking at purpose, particularly perhaps as women, that you don't just have a work purpose, but you have a work and life purpose. And I agree with you that it's not about balancing it. It's about, I would say, weaving it more together so that you can achieve at any given time. And this is, again, what I mean about women living in cycles. I think, there's a cycle when your children are sort of small and before the last one has gone to school. And then there's a sort of primary school cycle. And then there's a secondary school cycle when suddenly they seem to not need you very much anymore. And, you have to make adjustments. Or you can make adjustments. Sometimes it's really hard to manage those two purposes particularly when children are small, I would say. And it sort of in some ways gets easier, but not entirely. And you can't sort of, you don't just abandon your children when they get older. If it's a question of children, it might be how you live your life at home with your partner. However, or, I mean, I call myself the club sandwich generation at the moment because I'm 70, but my mum, who is 97, is still alive and needing, my kind of, I don't, live with her and care for her, but, she needs my input in her life. And then because I had a first marriage, I have children. I have sons in their 40s and I have grandchildren with them. And then I married again after I was 40 and adopted two little girls from Russia, and they are in their 20s. But one of them has fetal alcohol syndrome, and well, they both live at home, in fact. And so I feel that I've never managed to have an empty nest. Not that I've looked for one, but as it happens, it's just never happened. And I have always felt the need to have flexible working in all sorts of ways, just not necessarily just working from home, although I pretty much always have. but also that flexibility to be able to, be where I need to be at certain times, whether that's during a day or during a week or wherever it is. So, and I was for 10 years, I was a work-life balance consultant, another strange job I fell into back in the sort of early 2000s, when it was actually, can you believe it, the concept was quite new. And it was that was very much also about listening to the needs of parents, of carers, but also other people who didn't have caring responsibilities, and making sure that they had the flexibility and the respect, if you like, for their home lives.
Absolutely. It feeds into this whole concept of what I work with is the reflection with action. And I say that reflection is where the why piece comes from. And then the action is where the purpose piece is seen in motion. And they are different. So the why for me is the emotional significance that you assign to your purpose, and your purpose being this overarching intention that guides your direction in life. And where you said earlier that often it's when you're asked a question, then you start to think about it and process what it is that you actually believe, or how you operate in that space, because it is through the articulation that helps you to understand what it is that you believe in that, and process it. And for me, I'm the same. It's a case of this reflection with action leads to the fulfillment. So a lot of people are looking for this balance. They're looking for the chasing the happiness, but actually when you're purposeful with your action, it ensues as a natural result.
Yes, absolutely. And I think the happiness comes from the journey rather than the outcome. It's about having that purpose, wanting to achieve something, and then going through the process of helping other people to do it, or whatever your particular purpose is, whatever your why is. It's about the way there. It's not about sort of, oh, well, I've got there, I've done that, I've achieved this, I don't know, got my book out, or I've sort of got X number of people, or made X amount of money, or whatever. I mean, it's usually in the mission, I would say, that the satisfaction and the happiness comes. And when you start to feel that maybe you've achieved that, and you've kind of come to the end of a piece of road that might be that mission, that's when you start to feel discomfort. It seems to be not really happiness and like, oh, I've done it, I've finished, that's all done and dusted. It's actually, that's where you start to feel slightly uncomfortable in your own skin, and what's happening, and am I bored with this? What's next for me, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I think it's, mission and purpose is about the doing rather than the coming to an end of something.
Yeah, I love that. And share with me, Lucy, we spoke earlier about mission magic. What's the magic piece for you? What is that?
The magic piece for me is getting together a group of women, some of whom might know each other and some of whom definitely don't. And, I generally limit it to 12 people, 12 women a year on this mastermind journey. We meet once a month, and we have a kind of long Zoom call where three people get to kind of, I mean, we call it spotlighting, but they air an issue or a problem or a question or whatever it is. And we also have a WhatsApp group which gets very busy. We have a kind of LinkedIn pod, so everybody supports each other on social media as well. We meet generally about 3 times a year, and each of them has an event. I mean, it's called an event because it's posted as a LinkedIn event, but they run a masterclass and we promote it for them. But through those activities, people get to know each other extremely well, and they're very giving, they're very supportive. And because I just have one person in every area or market or industry. I mean, I don't want people to ever feel that they have a competitor, say, in a mastermind group. Everybody is very open. Everybody is incredibly insightful and creative about other people's issues, where they need to go, and but by focusing on the mission that each person, each woman is sort of developing, and they usually come into the mastermind because they feel at that either slightly stuck or uncomfortable, or what's next kind of thing stage. And the other women are just an amazing kind of support group, and I think that's what I love most about it. That's where the magic comes in. It's the interplay and the relationships of other people and the support, and it's sort of the way they lift each other up.
And it wouldn't surprise you probably to know that everything you just described there, I feel, represent your core values in what drives you, in how you're working with these women. It's enabling you to really bring out what really matters for you. We could talk for ages, because purpose is at the heart of what both of us have chosen to focus on. And what I would love you to do is just share with the listener how they could reach out and connect with you. What's the best way for them to do that, please?
Well, probably the easiest way is to contact me on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on other social media as well, but LinkedIn seems to be probably the most democratic way of doing it. So could just connect with me, send me a DM. That's probably the easiest way to do it. So I'll just say that.
Perfect. Thank you. Well, the links are all in the show notes, so head there if you'd like to reach out to Lucy. Thank you so much for coming on the show and for sharing why you do what you do. It's been an absolute pleasure hearing your background and your continuing focus and your mission, your magic mission, your mission magic. It's fabulous. Have you got some final words for us, please, Lucy?
I think if you want some sort of simple piece of advice, is try and clarify where you are in regards to a mission at the moment, whether you have a lifelong mission that is always what you're concentrating on, or whether you feel that you're in a particular cycle, and where you are in that cycle. Are you right in the middle of it, in which case that's great, you probably don't need to think about it much, but is it coming to an end? Do you need to look for something, your next phase, if you like? And I think it's good to be aware of that. And other than that, just write your book. That's my main my main kind of thing, because I think of writing a book just clarifies so much. I mean, just as the act of writing it, putting it into words, structuring it, is just such a great piece of self-development, and it's a piece of mission development as well.
This episode's over, but let's keep the conversation going. How has this episode impacted you? Share your insights, takeaways, and reflections with actions on social media, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback creates powerful ripple effects, helping others to discover its value. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for links on how to work with me, where to buy my new book, Focus on Why, Create a Purposeful Way of Life, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and where to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.